This rookie draft class could change the entire landscape of Dynasty Fantasy Football because of one position. And the one position is wide receiver. And everybody loves their sexy wide receivers in Dynasty where it's like, oh, I've got this asset and he's so cool and I've got this. I've got so many wide receivers. We see so many wide receiver factories for our team blueprints when we do them for our supporters at flockfantasy.com/domain. So many wide receiver factories. And so when you're talking about this particular class, we like taking a look every year at reception perception, which all of these breakdowns, all of this research and data done by Matt Harmon, who is over at Reception Perception. So a lot of the analysis you hear today is going to come from our takeaways from his analysis. So Matt Harmon, we appreciate you doing what you do and also letting us use your research. So he gets the credit. There's our works cited for this for sure. But we wanted to highlight kind of what he took away from some of these things and then how that fits into the Dynasty landscape and how it fits into their Dynasty values. That's what we are here to talk about. So let's talk about Marv first. Marv, when you read through his reception perception profile, 83rd percentile against man, 80th percentile against zone, 87th percentile against press. What did you expect? It's Marvin Harrison Jr. He mentioned in the article, he's like, Marv is up there graded with Jamar Chase for like one of the highest like reception perception scores ever. You shouldn't be surprised. He was lined up outside 80% of the time in college. So this is a guy that's going to come in and be a bigger X receiver. This guy's going to play outside a lot. A guy that doesn't really have a ton of weaknesses. A lot of people will dog on his yak. But when you're looking at his route tree, I mean, his route tree wasn't near as bad as people sometimes want to make it out to be. And look, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, does anybody ever say anything bad about Marv? And people do try to find weaknesses in Marvin's game. And the fact of the matter is, again, he is one of the highest graded receivers on this very, very reliable database that Matt has put together over at Reception Perception. So with that, Marvin Harrison Jr., we've said this, and we said in a video earlier this week, we're trading off of the 101, 102. We're not drafting a ton of Marv. But if you're drafting Marv, it doesn't matter because you're getting this. And what you're getting is an elite, like best of the best prospect that's come out from the wide receiver position in a long time. Yeah. That alone can change the landscape of Dynasty Fantasy Football. But now talk about Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, so Malik Neighbors is like, just kind of the same, potentially better from a prospect perspective.
From a fantasy perspective.
A lot of like scouts, a lot of graders that do like actual scouting grades for NFL teams have Neighbors higher. There is legit, in my opinion, I believe that the whispers and the noise about Malik Neighbors being number one on a lot of NFL teams' boards is legitimate, and I wouldn't be shocked if Malik Neighbors is drafted above Marvin Harrison Jr. in the NFL draft. And his production speaks for itself. I mean, 50% of the snaps out of the slot, so very 50-50 from the slot to the outside. He's a very versatile wide receiver. He has yak ability. He's not utilized as a short to intermediate guy. Super often he wasn't in college, which means that he can really do anything. He could easily translate to a superstar in the league when you see what he did against the man, 84th percentile, against press, 78th percentile, 46th percentile against the zone. And I mean, his route tree speaks for itself. So we don't really have to say much more about Malik Neighbors. We've exhausted all really comps, all sort of production information about what he's done at LSU. Like he's Malik Neighbors.
And a lot of people like comp Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. from like a fantasy perspective. And I think the main difference between them, again, is you're talking about 80% outside versus like 50% outside. When you're talking about like Malik Neighbors potentially being like a big slot guy who you see these NFL offenses feature these big slot guys nowadays.
Higher floor.
That's exactly what it is. It's a higher floor. And it's the route to where, no pun intended, it's the route to where Malik Neighbors could end up being a more fantasy productive wide receiver, not only in year one, but period, than Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, well, he could end up being a primary slot receiver, too, in the NFL, which is something that I've heard from multiple people who say, I think he'd be better just as a primary slot guy who's exclusively in the slot, even though he can do stuff on the outside.
And the fact that he's both, like...
It's not bad to be an exclusive slot receiver if you're elite at it.
Yeah. And so, honestly, like... That one's pretty good. So now let's move to Rome because I think
this one's interesting.
We've established that between Marv and between Malik Neighbors, there's not a lot of distance, and those two guys alone. Now you have not only one guy but two guys that will be top 10 dynasty wide receivers right when they get drafted. That's a big deal. That changes the dynasty landscape more than you think. This is where I don't think people are fully grasping the impact that this year's wide receiver class is going to have on Dynasty, because there are not two wide receivers that will be top 10 Dynasty wide receivers when they step in. There are three. Rome Odunze. Is a top 10 Dynasty wide receiver when he gets drafted. Get mad in the comments. Like, it's my opinion, but I am feeling very strongly about it. Because when you're talking about Rome Odunze's route tree, look at this thing. Look at his reception perception profile. Look at this. It's all green. All of it is green. How many times have you seen an all green reception perception profile? Hint, you haven't. You haven't seen it.
Nope.
This is a guy 87th percentile against man, 81st percentile against zone, 92nd percentile against press coverage. What the reception perception profile proved to us even more is that Rome Odunze is an elite route runner. He is an elite wide receiver. He separates, similar to guys like Olave, Devonta Smith. His route tree that he comped it to Nico, Julio Jones, Brandon Ayuk even. He is an elite route runner. He does have the best hands in the class, and I don't think that's even like controversial. We knew that before all this.
But he dropped a ball in the Michigan game. Shut up. There's an entire season. Come on.
Rome Odunze wins 89% of his contested catches. Rome Odunze.
That's insane.
Goes down on first contact only 43% of the time. Guys, Rome Odunze is an absolute stud. Rome Odunze, if he gets a better landing spot than Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze is Dynasty Domain's wide receiver 1 in this class for Dynasty.
Yep. We've been in love with them since the beginning. Like, oh my gosh.
I don't think I'm being dramatic
obsessed with Rome
I think there are a lot of people. I think the cute thing to do for a lot of people is to short Rome Odunze, to say there's a big gap between him and Neighbors, blah, blah, blah. And I think if you paid attention to the NFL scouts, the NFL scouting community, the college world.
People are too scared to say that the gap between Rome and Neighbors
and NFL guys aren't. It's really just Dynasty thing.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this video and you're an open-minded person, which is most of you, here's what I'm going to tell you. We talked about this in a video earlier this week. Down-tiering and drafting Rome instead of Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. is potentially the best move you're ever going to make.
Easily. And that is a big reason
That's
why.
That's a shot call, too, by the way.
It's a shot call.
That could be a receipt.
And it's a big reason why in a lot of our team blueprints that we do for you guys over at flockfantasy.com/domain, have to use code domain. We're recommending people that have the 101 or the 1-2 at least explore in your Superflex rookie drafts, trading back from one of those picks into that 103 to 107 range, because that's going to be the range where Rome Odunze will be available, where Malik Neighbors will be available, where those second and third QB options will be on that board. Brock Bowers, those are just a few of the possible options. Maybe Brian Thomas Jr. ends up being in there. But if you want one of those team blueprints and you want that type of feedback, it's right here. You get a little peek at it. This is what it looks like. It's a customizable tool that we do based off of your roster. Whatever roster you want, you choose, and when you sign up for the Mother Flocker tier using code domain, you get 30% off of the site. You will get a free team blueprint when you sign up. You just have to throw it in the Team Blueprints channel on the Discord when you sync all your roles, and you get access to us personally. We give you personalized advice, not just on the blueprint, but after the blueprint as well.
During your rookie
answer
drafts.
Your follow-up questions, your rookie drafts. We tell you which guys to target. We are super happy to help you guys all the time, and we have a very fast growing community over there.
Big community too.
It's getting
We
huge.
freaking love Dynasty.
Yeah.
Again, if you want somebody to chat with during your rookie draft, we are here to chat with you. Join up. Links in the description, flockfantasy.com/domain. You have to use code domain though to unlock all of our exclusives. So Rome is ridiculous. So really
Slightly.
The meat and potatoes of this video is Rome Odunze to me.
Yeah.
I think these three guys are going to change Dynasty. Period. What does it mean? I mean, it means a couple different things from a Dynasty perspective. Like
we have alluded to this plenty of times because we've been very vocal about how much we like Rome Odunze and how much we think he's really the best value in your Dynasty rookie draft this year at the moment, and how down tiering to him is so good. This is a video where we officially loudly declare that Rome Odunze is our number one guy to target right now in this year's rookie draft.
Flag plant. Yeah, you're planting a flag on a guy that's a top 10. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Because I still think he's being overlooked by the Dynasty community in particular. Let's look at Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. has really been he's set himself apart as the clear number 4 in this class among Dynasty circles, and I think among NFL circles as well, because he's projected top 15 at this point. He's a guy who played 13% of his snaps from the slot. So playing alongside Malik Neighbors, who played 50% of his snaps there, Brian Thomas was largely used as an X receiver. He's playing outside. He was 57th percentile success rate against man, 59th against zone, and 83rd against press coverage. Okay, what does this tell you about Brian Thomas Jr. and how he plays? tells you he's a big body X receiver that has contested catchability that could be a big play guy in the NFL. I think we knew this already. But the problem with this is, and this isn't necessarily a problem, it's more of just a concern. When you've seen these guys come out in the NFL draft in recent years and get respectable draft capital, they haven't really panned out. Because this is kind of the mold that Quentin Johnston was fitting. This is kind of the mold that the Packers are going for with Christian Watson. And that's what Matt Harmon referenced in this article, and I think it was a great analogy because, again, we've seen these guys come out recently, guys that fit this build, and it's like the hit rate is not there. Brian Thomas, I think, is a little bit more polished than those guys were. I think he has a little bit more of a versatile skill set than those guys did. I think he's either going to be, a big play guy. I think he could be a DK. I don't think he's as good at contested catch. I think DK is more well-rounded, but I think he could be a DK in terms of the big play over the top stuff. But Matt Harmon said he could also be a faster version of T. Higgins, which I hadn't thought about that, but it does make sense. So with Brian,
I don't know. We're not comp guys.
Ryan Brett
is definitely
a comp guy, but. That's kind of where he put his range of outcomes, which I think is really interesting because obviously QJ's not dead, but he's close. He's on life support. And T. Higgins is good. A better version of T. Higgins would be really good. So I think he's got a really large range of outcomes here, but
yeah,
he was really good in college.
Yeah,
point blank.
Yes,
like really good.
Separated himself. He's pretty much the unquestioned wide receiver 4 in this class until proven otherwise, unless the draft capital says we're wrong. But I do want to transition over to the top options over at Texas this last year,
so let's talk about the Texas
and a lot of the reason that they made it to the college football playoff. Let's start with Xavier Worthy because we're biased, and Xavier Worthy is our favorite receiver of the two. I don't care what other people say. This is kind of a shot called for us pre-draft, where regardless of the mocks, regardless of what people say about their skill sets, we just personally prefer Xavier Worthy as a talent. And obviously his speed helps. His record 40 time is great. Is there a worry that he could potentially just be a deep threat in the NFL? Maybe, but I think you'd be overlooking what he was able to do and accomplish as a somewhat versatile wide receiver and a route runner in college. There's obviously a lot of improvement that he could make there, but there's a lot to work from there as well. Look, Xavier Worthy, the disappointing production, I wouldn't even say bad production, just the less than ideal production that you would expect from a guy who broke out as a true freshman at an elite level was really due to just not a great offense. And honestly, Quinn Ewers leaving a lot left to be desired on the table because of his lack of ability to consistently push the ball downfield. I think Xavier Worthy, despite that, was still able to transcend situation, and his talent alone was very apparent on the football field.
He definitely flashed. And so Xavier Worthy has the speed, and that alone is going to be tempting for an NFL team to take him in the top 2 rounds of the NFL draft. But with Xavier Worthy, there are still a lot of questions. A lot of people will write him off as the speedster guys never really pan out. But when you look at the other really, really fast prospects that come out in recent history and their complete skill set as wide receivers, Xavier Worthy, in my opinion, actually does showcase some traits of being a wide receiver that isn't just a speed guy. I saw that in his college film. I think that, again, the offense didn't do Xavier Worthy any favors in terms of building his resume for the NFL draft. But that being said, the guy does not do well with any type of contact or anything like that. So if he's not winning with his speed, it's there are questions there. Look, Xavier Worthy, draft capital dependent, and it's just going to be how he develops in the NFL.
And also, I don't even want to address this. I'm about to stop addressing it altogether. But another another big question that a lot of people have with Worthy is his size. And I'll just say, look at the past couple of years and the wide receivers that have transcended situation despite their size.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a new NFL. This is a different time. Okay.
And I'll finish with the Texas guys here. Adonai Mitchell, his profile was better than I thought it would be, because he was in the 83rd percentile against press coverage and the 84th percentile against man coverage. That is higher than I thought it would be. And again, offense didn't do him many favors there, but he took 83% of his snaps on the outside, which you saw that on his tape. A lot of times he didn't even look like he was trying. He's been labeled as a traditional X wide receiver, and that's part of the red flags with us.
Because that's more of an old school label.
The production profile is not there. It's an old school label. We've seen these X guys come out, and it's Quentin Johnston was an X, right? There are red flags with that type of receiver and that type of profile in recent years. Not a yak guy. He's tackled on first contact in over 68% of his in-space attempts, according to reception perception here. But Adonai Mitchell, obviously very athletic as well. You saw him tear up the combine. So that, with some of the route running promises we've seen here, much better than we thought. His success by route is much better than I thought it would be. It's way better.
Yeah.
Like, I think Adonai Mitchell is not Keon Coleman.
No, he's not Keon Coleman, but I did pull up Quentin Johnston's profile from 2023 just to see how well it compared, and they were both almost identical in man percentile-wise, success rate-wise.
Yep.
84th percentile for AD Mitchell, 85th percentile for QJ, 31st percentile for AD Mitchell in the zone, 12th percentile in the zone for QJ, and then 59th percentile against press for QJ, and 83rd percentile against press for AD Mitchell. So very, and the route tree does look pretty similar. Actually, it's kind of scary, but you're going to get those comps. So
all right, let's get through a couple more receivers here to highlight for you. Ladd McConkey's a guy that some people have elevated as high as their wide receiver 5 in dynasty ranks. Took 69% of his snaps from the outside, which should surprise you because you're looking at this white guy and you're like, okay, he's a slot wide receiver. Oh yeah, this is Wes Welker. Like
Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, whatever. The guy had really good success from a route running standpoint against man and zone, but against press, he was bad. And so when you're talking about achieving his NFL ceiling, really what he's got to figure out is press coverage, right? Mm-hmm. And Matt Harmon comped him to Tyler Lockett, but said basically Tyler Lockett figured out his press coverage issues. And the reason he did that is because he was paired with a really good quarterback. So from a dynasty standpoint, I think if you see Ladd McConkey go to a bad team or a team with a quarterback that can't do it, I personally won't be drafting a lot of him. But if he goes to a quarterback with a good team or a team with a good quarterback, well, I guess both of those are the same. If he goes to a team with a good quarterback, then that could change the output and the outcome of Ladd McConkey in his rookie year and beyond. So
yeah, and Keon Coleman, our next guy here, it is kind of funny just seeing the write-up on Coleman because there have been
look at that route tree.
Continual and progressing question marks with Coleman and his ability and his route tree overall because he is less of a polished prospect, a lot more raw. And, for all the athleticism that he was supposed to have, he's not very super fast, but his gauntlet was amazing, so I guess he's the next Puka. In fairness, we did see the potential upside with Coleman in the early pre-draft process, but Avery had questions before I had questions.
Look, obviously a guy that he's a big body receiver, he has good athleticism, he breaks tackles well, really well, and historically, he needs to be a big slot guy to succeed. That's really what we're looking for with Keon Coleman, and honestly, it's going to depend on a lot of things. I think it's going to be largely landing spot dependent here with Keon Coleman. Ricky Pearsall, he did a write-up on him as well. He projects as a flanker or slot in the NFL who can play X occasionally. This guy has the crazy contested catch rate, things like that. He has some of the best man and zone percentiles in the class with 87th percentile in man and 69th percentile in zone. He's a strong route runner. He's got good hands. He's versatile. He's very good in space. So Ricky Pearsall, he was a sleeper at one point. I don't think he's necessarily a sleeper anymore. And honestly, his route tree looks pretty good. His write-up on Ricky Pearsall I thought was pretty promising. Definitely a guy we might keep our eye on for mid to late second round picks in Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Yeah, that'd be really nice to see. And Roman Wilson is going to be the last guy here. He is an interesting case. He got a lot of hype because of the Senior Bowl, not as much as Ladd and Pearsall. They kind of stole the show. But with Roman Wilson, kind of an under-the-radar guy at Michigan, his production was never out of this world. But we know how Michigan operates their offense, or at least how Jim Harbaugh operated his offense in Michigan, and that was very run heavy, run first, then pass it on third down. And Roman Wilson was just not very efficient, not super effective, at least at first glance. Man coverage, he was 19th percentile, zone 11th, press 15th percentile. So you're looking at that and you're like, oh, flashbacks to Rashee Rice. Not very great, not very encouraging because we don't really want to bet on another outlier. Yeah, that's for sure. There are a couple interesting traits that Roman Wilson has, though, that I think could offer value to some NFL teams and potentially still result in him going day 2, in my opinion. Obviously, Avery has been very vocal about how Roman Wilson is kind of a my guy or a your guy, and then kind of backed off that a little bit because of this specifically, because of these numbers and this percentile. But
because Matt Harmon's better at this than I am, for sure.
Right. But when you're looking at a slot percentage, 65% slot, utilizing motion packages, which when you're thinking about Shanahan style offenses, or if he were to go to a landing spot like the Niners or something like that, where he could get some utilization in the slot, that's definitely a skill set that an NFL team would want to potentially build off of, and would obviously give him opportunity as a starter in the NFL to potentially get the ball. He's a smaller guy, definitely a possession wide receiver, 5'11", 185, labeled really as a one-trick pony for the most part. But one interesting thing was his contested catch rate, despite that lack of size.
Good.
12% contested catch opportunities. He had an 80% success rate on those, which I thought was really, really interesting. One of the best dig route success rates in the class as well. So he does have some ability there as a route runner. And again, another guy that we mentioned before was a Tyler Lockett comp for someone like McConkey. That's been raised for Roman Wilson as well. Harmon isn't super high on that because Lockett was a lot more versatile as a route runner, but he can definitely separate on go routes because of his speed. I mean, he ran a 4.39, I think, at the combine, but he's not really an overall elite separator across the board. So that's kind of a weakness in his game, and we're really going to have to see his landing spot and his draft capital and what situation he's going to fall into. We're hoping for like Miami. That would be awesome.
Yes. Yeah. All right, do us a huge favor. Make sure you drop a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And like I said, blockfantasy.com/domain to get a team blueprint, one-on-one rookie draft advice, all of it. See you over there. We'll see you guys later.